Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Senior Pastor Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, hello, Northland family and friends. Hey, welcome to this special edition of Extra Takes. I am actually with Andrew Stanley, not to be confused with Andy Stanley. I'm sure he gets that a lot, but he's actually going to be doing a comedy night here at Northland next week on November 20th, and I actually cannot wait. So the entire Laxton family will be there. And I don't know if we will be on the front row, second row, maybe, we don't know. But I want to just spend a few moments and minutes with Andrew, just actually getting to know him so that you can kind of get to know him in terms of getting to hear him on Thursday evening. So, hey, Andrew, hey, welcome to Extra Takes, man.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited and really excited about the show here soon.
Yeah. So where like are you anchored in Atlanta, or where's home for you?
I am. I've been close to Atlanta my whole life. I grew up in the suburbs, then went to Auburn for college, which is in Alabama, but it's really only about 2 hours away from Atlanta. And then moved to Midtown after school. After I got done with that pesky corporate job, I stayed in Atlanta because it's where, for the Southeast, it's kind of where the hub for stand-up comedy is. And so
So
it's
you
been a
moved
good
to
place to be
Midtown
based.
Atlanta.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
And we were there until about a year and a half ago. Now we're in Buckhead.
Okay, you're in Buckhead. So my wife and I, when our 19-year-old now was one, we lived in Midtown Atlanta in Atlantic Station. But before shootings and all that happened, I guess.
They started happening pretty quick, if I remember right.
So there's no lot. Like when we were living there with the 1-year-old, there was a shooting two floors above us, and I'm from the rural South, so I had never lived in urban anything, and so here I am with my wife of 2 years and or actually 4 years and our baby of 1. And we're in urban Atlanta in Atlantic Station, where and then we had heard that there were some drug deals that happened too in our apartment. So hey, we were real missionaries, man, living in Midtown.
It's a city of commerce, and so there's all kinds of deals going on. It's hard to tell what kind of deals they are. Atlantic Station was created, and everybody thought it was gonna be this amazing, nice, like high-end shopping, kind of live, work, play, and then pretty quickly got a bad reputation, and it's a little better now probably than it was then, but it never quite recovered from that initial reputation from like a lot of violence.
And really, I was there early on. I mean, they had like Dillard's, the movie theater was just there. So, but
Yeah.
before we move on, that's actually where I started drinking my coffee black, because I would walk to Starbucks every morning. And I would put a lot of cream and sugar in my coffee at that point. But Starbucks did not have a microwave like Caribou Coffee did. And so I want hot coffee. And so after I put the cold cream in, my coffee wouldn't be hot. So I started drinking it black. So that's where I started drinking black coffee in Atlantic Station. That's where I became a man.
Yeah, well, it's you probably live a few extra years without all that cream in your system. So I think we could say Atlanta saved your life.
Atlanta saved my life. That's it.
Movie theater at Atlantic Station is still great. Still go there sometimes.
Okay.
No matter what movie it is, you're on the edge of your seat because you're like, what's gonna happen in here other than the movie? Right. But no, it's a nice place. My wife works really close to there now.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's pretty cool that we at least share that in common. Well, so hey, I got a couple questions I would love to ask you and just kind of pick your brain about comedy. But the first is, all right. So obviously you're a son of a pastor, so you are a PK. How in the world did you get into comedy when your dad's not in comedy?
Yeah, there's more preachers' kids comedians than you think. I meet a lot of kind of like John Christ is one, and then I feel like there's like Sam Kinison famously was one. Not the cleanest comedian, but it came from preachers. And for me, it was my granddad and my dad are both pastors, so I was asked my whole life, are you gonna follow in the family business?
Yep.
And I never felt called to that exactly. I would like do checks every once in a while, like, am I supposed to go this way? And I never really felt that. And one of the main reasons was I didn't like talking in front of people.
Huh.
So I thought I would just never be a good pastor because I'm not good at public speaking. Um, so like I mentioned earlier, I went to Auburn, got a finance degree. Um, all of school never once thought I should be a stand-up comedian. I thought I was funny, but I didn't think that would be a real job for me. Um, so I graduated, got a good, cubicle financial analyst job here in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, and my dad would always ask me, he'd be like, "Do you like your job?" And I would say, "I like my life. I love my friends and I love my softball team and I love, all the stuff I do outside of work, and work lets me do all that. So like having a nice time, but no, I don't like my job really."
Right.
And I just, today's world, I think there's a lot of acceptance around not liking your job because it just feels like how you're not supposed to like your job. So
Mm.
it's fine. And sometimes it is. And it was for me, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, I think the thing that made me realize I should try something else was I would look at, the trajectory I had at this company or just in the industry, and I'd say, all right, if I could, in 5 years have my boss's job, I don't even know if I would want to do that. Um, so I thought I was funny. I did one thing at the end of college where our fraternity had a senior speeches night where all the graduating seniors could get up and talk about whatever they wanted in front of, 120 guys. And so I decided to write a funny kind of awards ceremony style presentation where I'm giving all the graduating seniors, sarcastic awards, basically just making basically a little roast of everybody.
Right.
And it went so well. And I was reading it and I would just do one at a time. And I was nervous standing in front of everybody, but people really laughed a lot.
Yeah.
And it was such a good feeling. But even then, I wasn't like, I'm a comedian. Down in my core, I'm meant to be a stand-up comedian.
Right.
But it did let me know that I'm funny and I could make people laugh in a way that was maybe above average.
Yeah.
And so after, about a year and a half of doing this job, realizing it's probably not for me long term, I thought, I've always felt like the coolest job in the world would be, you know, my favorite show growing up was The Office, the American Office. And I was like, I bet the people that sit in the room and come up with this stuff, I bet that's the most fun job in the world.
Mm.
So I thought maybe I should at least pursue that. Maybe I should at least see what I would have to do to get in that world. And so I talked to my dad about it, and he was like, you should talk to Jeff Foxworthy. We know him. And I was like, you know him. I don't really know him. And my dad was like, I think he'd like to talk to you. And so I reached out to Jeff. Jeff took me to lunch, um, California Pizza Kitchen in Alpharetta, Georgia. And he told me about stand up comedy. I was like, I'm not interested in that, but how do I write? And he goes, there's a guy that's written for me on some projects. Like when I've done game shows, we always have some writers to do jokes for, like, Are You Smarter Than Fifth Grader? And I think he did the American Bible Challenge show.
Yep.
And so he connected with a guy that wrote for him on some of that stuff. And so now I'm emailing with this guy who lives in Nashville. And he says, all right, Andrew, I'll help you get into comedy writing. But um, before I do, what I'd like you to challenge yourself with before I help you, I want you to write 5 minutes of jokes and go do them at a stand-up comedy open mic.
Okay.
And I said, no, thanks. I don't want to do that. I will write as much stuff as you want, but I don't want to perform. And he really insisted that I do it. And I really wanted him to help me. So I decided to go right in Midtown Atlanta on Peachtree Street, Laughing Skull Lounge. Seats about 85 people, dark, not the type of environment at that point in my life I was used to being in at all. Um, and I went to see an open mic first. I just want to see. I'd never even been to a comedy show really.
Right.
And so I went to an open mic, and it's 30 people doing 5 minutes each and rapid fire. And there's people that are hilarious. There's people that are insane, crazy people. And I remember leaving there feeling a little encouraged because I thought, oh, I won't be memorably bad. I might be forgettably bad, which is totally fine. I just don't want everybody to be talking about me on the way home. Like, what did that guy think he was doing? So I decided to do it. I signed up for that open mic. It went okay. I didn't have like a big moment of like, this is my thing now. But I did want to do it again, and so
Yeah.
I just kind of kept going. And Scott, the writer, kind of helped me through my first several times,
Yeah.
and I just never stopped. And eventually, I started to get opportunities in the church world because of a lot of nepotism. And all of a sudden, I'm flying around the country doing, a year later, I'm flying around doing fundraisers and events like the one we're going to do. And about a year and a half after or about 2 years after I started doing stand up, I had to quit my job because I was out of vacation days.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and that's how I knew to quit. And so all of a sudden I'm a full-time stand-up comedian. And that was, 7 years ago now. So
Okay, so 7 years ago. Wow. So going all the way back to that first night where you had to write 5 minutes worth of jokes. How long did it take you to write 5 minutes worth of jokes? You
well,
remember?
yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I know that it took me exactly how long it took to sign up for the Laughing Skull open mic. At the time, you had to email them and say, I would like to be on the show, please. And they would say, okay, great. How about 3 weeks from now? And you basically just say yes, because they're not in the business of helping you find the perfect date for you.
Right.
You're a random person emailing them. And so that date went on the calendar, and I was like, okay, great. I have, I think it was probably 2 or 3 weeks to really psych myself out and write these jokes as well as I could. And, Scott would help me. I would email him, hey, here's what I have. And he would say, oh, this is good. You should reorder that and, forget that one. But I like expand on that one. And he gave me a lot of good direction just to give me some confidence and to help me avoid some of the mistakes I think a lot of people make at first. Um, uh, there's no way to fully be ready for your first time trying stand up, but I probably had, a few weeks.
Okay, awesome. So since then, so you've been in it full time 7 years. What 2 additional years, so 9 years, kind of in total doing stand up.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Next year will be my 10-year anniversary. I don't
10-year
know. I don't
anniversary.
know
All
what'll
right.
happen.
So through that, time, obviously, so Jeff Foxworthy, kind of the family friend, kind of helped you
Yeah,
talk through that.
when people ask me how to start doing stand-up comedy, I say it's very simple. You have your famous pastor father reach out to one of the most successful comedians of all time and just go have lunch with him, and then it's
Just go.
easy. That's all it takes.
And then that's all she wrote, right? So that's awesome. So I want to ask you. So you obviously getting to hang out with Jeff Foxworthy. He's known as in some sense, how to be a redneck, or you might be a redneck if. But what's Jeff Foxworthy like? Just in person, sitting down at California Pizza Kitchen.
Unfortunately, I have no like interesting things to say about Jeff. He's just the best.
He's
Like there's no like dark side. There's no like when you really get to know him, he's like this. He's just such a good guy, so generous with his time. He volunteers at homeless shelters like more than anybody I know.
Yeah.
And he loves jokes. That's the big thing I've learned about Jeff is that, if I text him about something that's like, hey, manager, agent, whatever, kind of big picture question, he'll get back to me eventually.
Yeah.
But if I text him about a joke, I'm like, hey, I can't get this to work. He'll be like, send me a voice memo. And I'll send him the voice memo of the joke, and he'll call me 5 minutes later and be like, I have an idea. And the man just loves jokes. And I hope that I stay that way because, he could never write or perform another joke for the rest of his life and be fine. But he does it because he still really loves it. And I think most comedians, you know, it's as long as there's lots of things that can sidetrack you, but it's fun to see comedians that have stayed in love with comedy seemingly their entire lives.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So now you're almost 10 years in. And so I'm assuming that you have different time frames in terms of how much time you have for a particular set. So I had read somewhere, or maybe had heard one comedian talk about that for every minute he spends an hour in developing basically his set. Like, again, I don't, and they may have been for that guy, and I can't remember who it was. But how long does it take for you to prepare for like a typical set that you're going to do?
Yeah, you're always working on your act. and your act is just, the comedy that you do. And the gold standard for kind of a complete act is 60 minutes, a full hour. Comedy is kind of measured in hours. When you look at people's careers, it's an album or a special, usually about an hour. And that's just kind of how you measure it. And it's usually, and if you go see a comedian live at a comedy club, the headliner probably does about an hour. So an hour is about as much as somebody wants to hear from one person doing comedy, unless it's somebody like Dave
Or
Chappelle.
preaching
So,
for an hour, so.
well, there's that too. Some say people should preach, 40 minutes or less. But an hour is kind of the gold standard. So, when I'm asked to at events, sometimes they want me to do 15 minutes, sometimes they want me to do 70 minutes. And anywhere in that range, I'm comfortable. And it's going to be a lot of this, the 15-minute set is going to be the 15 of my 70 that is going to be the best for that event. And I certainly do put thought into that. But once you have your act, it's not a ton of having to, oh, I have a gig, let me write this. It's, hey, I've been writing this all along because I need it every night. And so wherever my act is at this moment, which I'm always working on, I'm going to take the X amount of minutes that will be best for this event and make sure it flows and makes sense. And I have transitions and I have a good opener and a good closer. But you're just kind of taking what you already have and doing what's best for that specific night. And then before we started recording, I was telling you I taped my first special several months ago. It's not out yet. So now I'm working on a lot of new material because I know once that hour's out, I'm not really going to be performing it that much anymore. So, I've got the hour I recorded and now I have all this new stuff that I'm working on. So when I'm with you guys, it'll probably be a good mix of both of those things because I don't have the new hour yet, but I have lots of new stuff I'm excited about. And then I'll also do some of the older stuff that I think will be a good fit for Northland.
Gotcha. Another thing that, again, and just because I read a few books doesn't mean that I know anything. So this is where you can even tell me like that is not true in comedy. But one of the things that I'd learned is like mind mapping your joke. So you have an act, but you might. I'm assuming that in your act, you're not carrying one complete, like in some sense, theme throughout that act. You might have various kinds of topics and themes, but do you mind map those topics and themes and to see how much you can milk that topic for? How does that work?
I'm always jealous of comedians that can do an hour on one topic.
Okay.
It's so impressive because it's, you get something that you're excited to write about, and I usually max out at like, marriage is a big topic. So like maybe 10 minutes of my act is about marriage, but there's lots of little things within that. But there's people that'll do a whole special about farming. Like Greg Warren's one of my friends and one of my favorite comedians, and he's got a whole special about farming. And you don't have to be a farmer for it to be hilarious. I don't know. I was like, why did you even want to do this? But it's amazing, and it's especially for comedians to see somebody do that is great. And it's jokes. It's not like a one-man show. It's like just a bunch of jokes about it.
Right.
In terms of mind mapping, I don't know if I've ever thought about like that term. I'm not even sure if I fully understand what that means, but you're always trying. The way my brain works is it's not like I'm not choosing what I'm going to write about. It's kind of like whatever is funny to me, I will write about, and then I'll find a way to make it all go together later.
Gotcha.
I hope that when people watch my special, when it comes out, it will not seem that way. It will seem like, it seems like he wrote this from front to end because I've worked hard to make the things that I think are funny go together.
Right.
But at least for me, it doesn't start out that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, the book, I think it was in the new Bible comedy book, but it was talking about like mind mapping. So like take marriage, so you put marriage in the middle, and then you have all of these offshoots, and like you say, my wife's feet's cold, and then you talk about that, and then you think about feet, and then you draw another thing, and so you're thinking about all of these different elements to marriage, and then you might even take that element to another, and so it's just saying, so that's the way.
Yeah. No,
thinking
totally,
about
yeah.
mind mapping, a particular topic, because that's something that I try to use, like in preaching. I really do try to leverage humor, so not in some sense as a stand up comedian, but I might mind map a particular, kind of topic or theme if I'm talking about something, and go, how can I start out with something funny about this, but that would connect something to the subject or the main point that I'm going to be teaching on. So that's where I learned the idea of mind mapping there. And so, but yeah, so that's what I
Totally.
meant by kind of mind mapping.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and that is certainly something that we're always trying to do as comedians, is you're trying to get all the meat off the bone for whatever premise you're talking about.
Yeah.
You'll see new comics a lot of times, and I certainly probably still do this, where I do a joke about something and it's 2 minutes, and then I move on to the next thing. One of my comedian friends will be like, "Why did you stop talking about that? There's so much more there. Like, explore that more." Like, like you mentioned, like, even if it's a little off, you can always come back to the core of what the joke's about. But going on a tangent, like you said about the feet thing, it's like cold feet. It's like you can go off on a cold feet, that separate thing, and be like, anyway, back to my wife.
Yeah.
And the more you can kind of weave things together and be like, he talked about 70 things, but it all felt like one thing. That's part of putting on a good show, I think, and is always the goal. Um, but yeah, the big thing is always, hey, don't move on from something too quickly, because there's probably more there. And as soon as you start trying to add more stuff and none of it's working, you're like, all right, maybe it's done. But
Right.
you kind of gotta squeeze as much juice out of the lemon as you can.
That's cool. So just a couple more. What about an audience makes it hard to be a comic? Like, so what kind of audience really makes it difficult to do comedy?
um, you know, it's I really enjoy performing for lots of different types of audiences. There's certainly, you know, settings and groups that probably like me more than others. But one of the important things to me for my career, I get pulled to the church stuff because I'm a Christian and I'm a comedian and I'm clean. So I get a lot of opportunities on the faith-based side of comedy, whatever that means, whether it's church shows or nonprofit fundraisers and lots of things where I need to be clean, not just because I want to be, but because also they require it.
Right.
And those audiences are really fun for me. And it feels like you're a little bit, it's kind of playing for the home crowd.
Mm.
If I have a joke about mission trips, I don't have to explain what mission trips are before I start the joke. It's
Right.
like, yeah, everybody's kind of speaks the same language over here. But I also really love doing these comedy clubs where it's people from all different backgrounds, all different belief systems, all different races, sexual orientations. And like, if I can make my jokes funny enough that a room full of everybody laughs, and then it's also, clean enough into my, personal standards for me to go take that same joke and do it at a church event and it do well, then those are the type of jokes that I really like to write. So I like performing for all different audiences. Um, but to answer your real question about which audiences make it hard, in the club setting, obviously, if they've been drinking too much,
I mean, they don't
it-
laugh.
they laugh sometimes at the wrong parts, and it's just like I do the Laughing Skull weekend shows a lot, and if I do a Saturday, there's a 5 o'clock show, an 8 o'clock show, and a 10:30 show, and
Ooh.
so the audience from that 5 p.m. show to the 10:30 show is pretty different. 5 p.m. people haven't even had dinner yet, and 10:30 they've already had a night before they get to the club. And we're in the green room talking as comedians, and the first two people get finished, and they're like, "Don't do anything too smart for this audience, because if you talk about something too long, they'll forget what you started with, and like anything too smart they're not gonna like hang with you on it."
Right.
And so you gotta be like, all right, what do I have that will be better for this crowd?
Yeah.
I did a show the other night, a guy that just threw up in the audience. And
That'll
hard
touch.
hard to know where to go from there when the audience is literally just throwing up. I don't think it was something I said. Has that ever happened to you when you're preaching? Anybody just throw up?
No one's thrown up since I've been preaching. Now we had somebody pass out before, but not throw up.
And it was not because of your preaching. You
I
don't
don't think
think
it was
was
because of that preaching.
that powerful?
I don't think it was a Eutychus moment, but who knows?
But there's other things that can make an audience bad. Sometimes the setup in the room is bad. Like I've done fundraisers where everybody's in black tie attire and it's very professional, but the stage is 20 yards from the front row and the people weren't seated and they just had me go up and start doing comedy, and like that audience, and those exact people in a better setting might have been a great audience, but because of how the room set up and the format of the event, it just didn't work. Um, and so there's lots of things that can go wrong. Like that's why comedy clubs are so fun, is because when the right audience is in a comedy club, which is like the perfect environment for stand up, there's just nothing better. It's dark, it's low ceilings, everybody's had like one drink is about right for if you're trying to get people to laugh.
We'll
most
make
and at
sure
the
we'll
right
keep the
times.
one drink to a minimum next time.
Yeah, I don't know y'all's policy at Northland in terms of drinking alcohol in the sanctuary, but no, it is funny. I do a lot. It's funny because I do a lot of fundraisers and benefits, and even the faith-based ones. A lot of times will have wine or something, and I always say that is my favorite audience is Christians who are drinking. Hypocrites are my best audience. Um, but that's part of the fun is you go up on stage and you're like, all right, I don't know who I have here in this room. I hope we can all have fun together. And a lot of it is, and some of it's out of my control, but a lot of it is in my control. So I'm very slow to blame the audience. You try everything you can to win them over, and then most of the time that there's something that can unlock it into being a good show.
Yeah. Well, cool deal, Andrew. Well, the last question is anything to just kind of whet our appetite for next Thursday. I mean, like maybe some of the topics you're going to cover, just anything to just kind of bait us just a little bit.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, I have a lot going on in my life. My wife and I just had our first baby 5 months ago, so I'm a new dad, so I've got lots to say about that. Been married for 3 years, so I'm an expert, so I have lots of great marriage advice for everyone.
Good.
But I grew up, as you mentioned, I grew up a preacher's kid. I was also homeschooled, so I come from a pretty sheltered background, but I also grew up in like this big church like you guys where our family was like weird local celebrities, so lots of weird interactions with people growing up. I tell a lot of stories. So it's a lot of stories for me growing up about where I'm at currently, and everything is usually the show goes great and people really like it. I had a show. Where was I this past weekend? I was up in Michigan, and it was an older crowd. It was a really older crowd. No, I was in Iowa, and it was a really older crowd. And sometimes audiences don't laugh like a ton. You want them to laugh, where you look at them in their eyes and see them smiling. You know they're enjoying it. You're like, I wish you guys would laugh more. And this really old guy came up to me and he goes, "Young man, that was the best show I've ever seen in my life." And I was like, "Oh wow, thank you." I did not know from how it felt up there, but so
That's the way it is for preaching. It's like you think that you're looking at an audience and like deer in the headlight stare, but then out in the lobby, they're like, that was probably one of the best messages I've ever heard. Well, okay,
you changed the light.
Didn't resonate on the face.
Yeah, so I guess my message to everyone that's going to come to the show, just if you think it's funny, please laugh and
There you go.
smile, and we'll have a great time. I'm super excited and pumped to be back on Dog Track Road, which is so funny that is y'all's address.
We're trying to get it changed, man. We're trying to be a little bit more spiritual than Dog Track. I mean,
How about put it all on Black Boulevard?
Something like that. Hey, but you were here. I mean, because my wife works at Masters Academy, and I heard that you were there at Masters Academy. What, last year?
Yeah, I can't remember how long ago that was, but yeah, super fun.
So that's cool. Well, we can't wait to have you, Andrew. We're definitely looking forward to it. And if you are watching or listening to Extra Takes, we're actually going to offer you a buy one, get one. So just for our audience, you can actually put in, we're going to actually put the link in the show notes. So the link to the tickets are going to be in the show notes. And then you're going to be able to put in Northland BOGO, and you will buy one, get one, so that you can invite somebody with you to hear Andrew on November 20th. Well, Andrew, thanks so much for carving out a little bit of time this afternoon with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm pumped to see you guys here in just a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Well, Northland family and friends, be blessed. Until next time, blessings.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.